You?
Doing well, thank you.
Excellent.
All right, everybody, we're going to go ahead and get started. With us today is Nix Schneider. Nix is a social worker, educator, and trainer with the Crisis Response Network. And today he's going to walk us through, take us on a journey to explore strategies about self-care and well-being. So, Nix, would you like to hold questions, or is it going to be interactive? How do you want to do this?
Totally interactive. We're
All
having
right.
a conversation. I have PowerPoint for those of us that are more visual learners, but I would love for this to be a conversation since it's 45 minutes, an hour workshop. And I can see that I can only see Jeff, but I understand working remotely and being at home, there are a lot of barriers to turning our videos on. But if you're able to, I'd love to see you, see your face. And if not, that's okay too. Excellent. Even if you can just pop on to say hi here and there. But if you have a question at any point, please do unmute and just ask away. Excellent.
So we're good to go, Nix.
Okay, perfect. Well, I'm so glad that you're all here today, and I'm just thrilled to have this opportunity to be here with you. And thank you for the warm introduction, Jeff. And I do work with Solari. We just rebranded. We were formerly Crisis Response Network. We are now Solari Crisis and Human Services, and I'm the manager of education and training. I'm also a social worker, and I am incredibly passionate about this work. And I just want to first and foremost just thank you all for all of your hard work, such important work that you're doing to create a hunger-free Arizona. And I know that you're all in different roles throughout Arizona. I understand the network is comprised of many different people with many backgrounds and different roles. So thank you for being here. If you have questions at any point, you can unmute, just ask. You can also put it in the chat. Jeff, perhaps you could let me know when there's a question. We can just go ahead and respond to that. I would love for this to be interactive. I'm definitely not a lecture style presenter. And so let's have a conversation, a really important conversation about stress management and during a pandemic, but also beyond, because we already had stress before the pandemic. We'll continue to have stress after, and now we have layers and layers, upon layers of additional stress that we're experiencing around the pandemic. For all of us, I don't know one person that does not experience stress. Life is unpredictable, and we're all going through this together. We were forced into crisis mode, essentially, in our personal world, in our professional lives. Not only are we dealing with our own stressors, whether it be family, job, financial stress, health-related stress, our own stress, helping our families, supporting our friends, our colleagues, and the people that you're supporting, the communities. It's a lot. And so it's important that we all, recognize when we need to take care of ourselves. And that's what we're here today. Hopefully that's what you're here today to talk about, is how can we be better at creating space, making that time to actually take care of ourselves. People in helping roles like yourself, it's hardest for people that help others to actually make time to help themselves. You know this. We all know this. We say self-care is important, want to make it a priority, but it's not easy to do that. So we're going to talk today about what are some of those barriers to practicing self-care. I think that we could go around the virtual room here and everyone could say one thing that they've done that's considered, self-care, connecting with family and friends, exercise, eating healthy, all these things that we hear every day. People say, you got to make time for this. It's more complicated than that. Sometimes we don't have time. Who has 30 minutes a day to take a walk around the block? Not everyone. So we're going to discuss that, and we're going to talk about some of the techniques. And a lot of this may be a refresher, but I think it's helpful for us to put it out there, to have options. We'll talk about creative options. We'll talk about what stress is, And again, I want to meet the group where you're at. So if you take me in another direction, we'll go in that direction. Stress builds up over time and it can lead to burnout. If you haven't already experienced it, we're going to talk about what those signs are. Burnout, compassion fatigue, because you're on a daily basis, you're helping other people who are going through their own, just experiencing distress, trauma, individual trauma, collective trauma, even in crisis mode. So we're going to talk about that, creating that space, and beyond that. So I'm going to start. I want to share a little story because I've been in this field. I've been a social worker for almost 15 years. And one of my jobs, the most rewarding job I've held to this day in my career, was a position where I was helping to oversee a suicide prevention program for youth. And I was on call, so I was on call 24/7. And every time I was at the movies on a Friday or Saturday night and my phone rang, I would jump out of the seat because I was so nervous that this could be a call from one of my volunteers or staff saying that we have a young person standing on a bridge ready to jump. And I would have to give the green light, let's send police, let's send rescue services. I was constantly in that mode every day, every morning, throughout the day, evening. When I'm in my sleep, I would jump out of my sleep. The job was super rewarding. I didn't have time to do anything but wake up, work, come home, take care of my dogs, be with if I was with a partner at the time, and go to sleep, eat and go to sleep. Everybody said, you have to take care of yourself. You gotta, exercise, go to the gym, take a walk, talk to people. Well, I would talk to my mom on the way to or from work. That's when I had time to talk to her. And so it wasn't happening for me. I couldn't make that time. And what happened is over time, over a couple of years, I started experiencing burnout. I was feeling exhausted, physically exhausted, mentally exhausted, stressed all the time, on edge all the time, just becoming very irritable. And at some point, I started to question whether or not I wanted to be doing this work anymore. It was too much. It was affecting my physical health and my mental health. And I was getting anxious and I had a lot of health symptoms because of my anxiety. And I finally realized I got to make some changes. And I had to start implementing self-care in my life. And I had to figure out how to do this, what was realistic for me, because people can tell you all day what you should be doing to take care of yourself. It doesn't matter because you have to decide what you're ready for, what you actually want to do, what you can realistically, feasibly implement in your life, right? Okay, so that's my story. I was able to do that and stay in that job, and I continue to do this work. But now I'm very mindful of what I need to do to take care of myself. Does anybody else want to share anything about your experience, whether it be in the past or now, just thinking about self-care, and if it's been hard for you or if it's been easy for you? Any thoughts? Someone in a helping field? We're all doing something, whether it be directly or indirectly, to help others. Does anybody want to unmute and share? You're all here, I'm assuming, joining this particular session for a reason. So if perhaps you can tell me what you'd like to get out of the session, anything that I've mentioned as far as what we'll cover.
Sometimes, I guess for me, stress has been a way of life. I'm an adrenaline junkie, and my previous career was high stress. And so sometimes it feels more comfortable to me to be really stressed out than to relax, because when I relax, I feel guilty doing something. So I don't know that I will ever really be able to de-stress. I wonder about that sometimes.
I appreciate your honesty, and I am sure you're not alone here in this group.
Yeah, I remember, I'm sorry.
Please.
I remember going out to where I find peace, which is out in nature, and decided to write but I felt like I had a watch. I kept like, how long is this taking? Huh? I got to get back. I got to do, just crazy.
Well, you say something very important here, and it's a great transition to what I was about to say. Is that before anybody can practice self-care, there's a couple of other steps that need to happen. Most importantly, we have to believe that we deserve to do something for ourselves. We deserve to be able to take care of our own needs. That's a big first step. Believing that self-care does not equal selfish. And that's a big deal for folks that are in these kind of helping roles, is it feels like if I take time for myself, I'm taking away time from helping other people in my personal world, my family, my kids, my dogs, my friends, my colleagues, the people I'm supporting in the community. I need that time to take care of them. But ultimately, if we don't take time to take care of ourselves, we really can't take care of them. As in my story is a good example. If I can't take care of myself, how am I going to support the young people we were serving? So the first step, which is not easy, is believing that we have that right to take care of ourselves. We deserve it. We really do. You all deserve it. Step one. Step two is identifying your own barriers. Like I said earlier, not everyone has 30 minutes to take a walk, to go to the gym, exercise. Not everybody has the financial means. Cooking a meal, a healthy meal, sounds great in theory. If anybody cooks, you know how long it takes. It doesn't take 10 minutes. You're making a meal, you're prepping. It could take hours. For me, it does. I'm not a cook. So healthy meals, it might not be feasible for some people. We need help. We need the tools. We need to learn the techniques if that's something we want to implement. So it's very personal to you, coming up with a realistic plan. And that could be sitting at your desk, your workstation, or you're out in the field, and you might just move around a little, shake around. Some people, it's a 5-minute thing here and there. You move around. That's fine. Another thing that I heard a couple months ago that I'm going to keep in my mind always is self-care can sometimes mean just saying no. We're used to saying, yes, 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 I can help. I can do this. I'm here to support you. Sometimes it's okay to just say, no, I can't today. Maybe tomorrow, ask me again. But today, I'm going to say no. And for those days when I say no, there's my self-care for the day. I said no to someone. So these are little things, but they build up. And before we get to that stage where we're like, okay, we can actually practice self-care, got to believe that you deserve it. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Does anybody want to add to that? I'm going to pull up my PowerPoint here. And I'm going to share it, and then I'm going to stop the share when you have questions and when we're talking so that we can see one another. Okay, so here's my PowerPoint. Okay.
Centers that are robotic, that are designed to fulfill online orders. Online orders for Walmart were up 43% versus a year ago. And so what we're seeing at Community Food Bank is a significant reduction in retail donations for those that are picking up grocery rescue. This is going to continue. Even prior to the pandemic, millions of dollars were being spent by these big grocery chains to fix their supply chain and to stop the waste. And that's just been accelerated, and it's certainly been accelerated now with all of the online orders and the store pickups. They're collecting much more data on everybody that visits a grocery store than they've ever had before. And we've had some conversations with folks at like Albertsons Corporate and at Kroger, and they've put new programs in place to do inventory control. And so I absolutely will tell you, we've seen peak retail for donations. We've seen a plateau for the last 2 to 3 years, and it's going to start going in the other direction. So if you're depending on that retail rescue donation product, if you have
the thought of losing our loved ones, we're all kind of living in fear on some level here surrounding the pandemic, and that might be fear that someone will test positive, that someone will get really sick, that we'll lose someone we love, and on top of that someone might lose their job, whether that be us or our loved ones, that our financial state will change in a heartbeat, that we will lose access to meet our means, like shelter, basic needs, shelter and food, as I'm sure you are all witnessing and helping others deal with that. So that is a real response that's triggered in our body, the release of hormones that prepare us to be able to either stay and deal with that threat. For many of us, we're used to it. We deal with the crisis, or we run and we say, I can't, I need to be in a safe place. I don't feel safe physically or mentally. And so many of us are going through this right now. If anybody would like to unmute and share, if you are open to sharing some of the things that are causing you stress, whether it be related to pandemic, your personal life or your professional life, you're holding space right now for others. You already are holding space likely for other people in your personal life. Now you're holding space for the people you work with in the communities you serve. And for most people, we can't leave our work at work. We take it home with us. We remember that interaction we had with someone that day that was meaningful, that was, you could feel their pain, you can feel their suffering, and we can hold on to that for a long time. Does anybody want to share their own experience, things that are causing you stress right now, just beyond the normal stressors? It's your work. Yeah, go ahead. Someone going to unmute?
Hi, this is Jerry Castro. I don't know if you can hear me or not.
Yes.
Yeah, for me, the stress is having coworkers, friends, relatives that have been affected by COVID, but have actually died from COVID illness, and it makes me rethink my own future. As far as my plans have changed, everything from how I was seeing my family to not being able to see my newborn grandson for almost 3 months till I finally took a COVID test myself. And just everything changed in the last, it's been over a year now. And to me, it was working very hard to keep our volunteers. We work with close to 3,000 volunteers with St. Vincent de Paul, helping to keep them safe and working hard to get the proper personal protection equipment supplies, knowing that it was so vital in our operation, something new, just changing the methods of service and everything just coming down. My wife continued, she didn't stop working, I didn't stop working. We just continued to serve and work. She works in the hospital setting. So just those fears of the unknown. And I think something that was mentioned earlier is faith. I just praying harder. I would pray more. I'd pray for those that were sick, pray for friends that are long haulers now that are still suffering months after having had COVID. So that's my worry is that I and my wife are even we already have lost close family members, but losing more family members to COVID. It just changed the whole dynamics of how I was thinking about my future, about life, and just trying to work harder, as hard as I can, to keep our volunteers safe during this time of COVID, because they've continued to serve from the beginning. Our volunteers continue to offer food assistance, rental assistance, even though they were social distancing, which we encouraged. And it was something that they continued to serve our 81 different, 80 pantries kept going. We have one in the Navajo reservation that had to close down due to the nation's request in Tuba City, but everybody else continued serving. And to me, it's really changing how I'm thinking about my future, looking more as far as, okay, should I retire sooner so that I won't get sick while I'm working, or just all the things that they cross my mind.
Thank you for sharing. The fear is real, and you shared some really personal things, and I see heads nodding. I see in the chat people are sharing very similar experiences, and having to go through your own experience if you've had to experience COVID, or family members, and fear of the unknown. It's so scary. It's such a scary time right now. And I just want to point out again that you are still showing up. It's pretty incredible. You show up for, whether you're a volunteer or staff, you're showing up for our community, and it's huge. So with that, again, it's important that we do everything we can to, stay healthy physically, emotionally. This is going to go on for years. We're not going back to the way it was ever, even though the vaccine people are feeling more comfortable being out there, nothing will go back to be the same. And so we're all having to adjust collectively to the changes, so many changes, and it's so rapidly changing. And so today, from today to tomorrow, things could change. So, thank you for sharing that, for being, brave to share that. Okay, yes, I see some of the chat messages here. It really does require a lot of courage. And not everybody, has that energy and can actually, continue to show up. And that's not a bad thing. That's someone taking care of themselves. But if you can show up, you do. But if we don't take care of ourselves and do everything we can to manage our own stress, I think you said it well, that can lead us down a path of not feeling well, being susceptible to more things that would contribute to health problems in the short run and the long run. So with that, if no one else has anything they want to share, we can continue on. I'll share my screen again, because I know this is a short workshop and we could talk about this topic all day, really, all week. I mean, this is something you don't want to stop talking about. So I did want to say, beyond this, I'm hoping that you all have your own networks, whether that be through work or home, your community, faith-based, whatever it is, that you're able to connect with others, even if it is virtually and or socially distancing, whatever you need to do to stay safe, but also to stay connected to others. We're all going through this together. Anybody else want to add to that? And Jeff, if there are things in the chat room that you think are helpful for me to know, please let me know. Okay. So we talked about some of the things that cause stress. I'm going to move this down just a little bit here. Managing stress. So oftentimes people say, well, if you just relax, you just take a couple deep breaths, it'll be okay. We know this isn't true. If we're in a state where we're experiencing extreme distress or someone else is experiencing distress, it's not very easy to just relax. It's not easy to just stop being scared or to stop feeling sad. These are real feelings and we deserve to have them validated. It's okay to be scared right now. It's understandable that we are experiencing fear, that we're, for some people, depressed, experiencing anxiety more than usual. It's heightened during this time. And people are experiencing trauma. It's real. Okay. So when we talk about self-care, what is it? Again, we're not going to spend too much time talking about all the different forms of self-care. Physical, that's really just getting enough sleep. I know for myself, sometimes I'm getting under 6 hours of sleep. I'm sure I'm not alone. There's a lot of things we're thinking about, a lot on our mind. And to your point, the fear of the unknown, what's going to happen tomorrow? What's going to happen a week from now, a month from now? We don't know. So that fear takes its toll on our bodies, and sleep is really important. So anything we can do to have structured, routine as much as we can and be able to get enough sleep every night. Physical activity does help, but we don't always have time to go out and walk or run or do some of the things that we'd like to do. So anything that you can do to keep your body moving, even if while you're sitting down, you're just moving your legs around, moving your feet around, stretching, getting up every so often just to stand up. You can walk in place. It's a lot of things that people can do to stay active. As far as, taking care of, our diets and eating healthy, do what we can, all right? If you can, pack healthy snacks, things that are easy on the go. If you don't have time to cook, staying connected with our family and friends. We all know this, how important it is. And it's hard in a virtual environment, but we do our best, whether it be Zoom or on the phone. We're talking to our loved ones, we're staying connected. And that's a huge part of self-care right now. It's making time for that. And our mental health, any kind of activities that keep the mind active, stimulated. You're reading, playing games. There are things that you can do on breaks or when you get home, where you can just sit there, a crossword puzzle, something to keep our minds going. You can do games with friends too on your phone. These are just little things that we can do. I do want to touch on the barriers again, because I think that's a big part of this, with all the fear and all the, support that you're giving other people. And I heard, some of you say, we just don't have the time, or we can't make the time to help others. Why should we help ourselves when we only have limited time? We need to put that time into helping others. These are barriers. There are a lot of barriers to engaging in self-care. And some of those barriers include that negativity bias. We know, how to take care of ourselves, but it's different from, being able to actually practice it, like I've mentioned a few times. So we want to identify those realistic self-care strategies, and only you can do that, right? If it's once a week, once a month, you'll find things that work for you, not things that other people are telling you to do. It takes work. It takes effort, and we're exhausted. You come home from a long day, or you're, working virtually, you're having a long day. Who has the energy for anything? Sometimes all I have the energy for is to reach into the cabinet and grab a cupcake and eat it. I mean, that for me is taking care of myself that day. We're tired. So it's making decisions. It's hard. So I just want to make sure I'm normalizing the fact that it is really hard. So I'm not going to sit here and tell you that we have to take care of ourselves and you have to exercise. I won't do that. You got to do what's right for you, and really be mindful of your own feelings about self-care. There's shame. People feel like, why would I put myself first? I don't deserve it. I don't deserve self-compassion. It can be there without us even knowing it. So that's a good first step, is to really think about, what are the reasons why? Is it beyond timing? Is it about not having the time or the energy? Or is there more to it? Am I feeling like it's wrong to take care of myself? Good questions to ask yourself. Without self-care, like I said earlier, can lead to burnout, exhaustion, health issues, illness. I don't know if anybody wants to speak to their own experience with compassion fatigue. Anybody in the helping field at some point may experience compassion fatigue when we're taking care of others. So I want to unmute. Does anybody have any thoughts on that? Has anybody ever experienced it or known anybody? Especially now during the pandemic, we're working hard on some people 24/7. You ever experienced burnout? Do you feel like, do we need to talk about what are the signs? I shared my story earlier. If you're starting to feel any kind of irritability, agitation, sometimes you may even feel guilty, like you don't want to be there, you don't want to be helping. That falls under the umbrella of compassion fatigue, burnout.
I can share. My name is Leanne. I'm the executive director of the Agua Fria Food and Clothing Bank. And I would definitely say that I am currently identifying with compassion fatigue. As the executive director here, we have 2 locations serving the Southwest Valley, and I'm the only full-time paid employee, which to start with is already a lonely position to be in, where there's not really a support system or network in place for nonprofit directors or anything like that, or leaders in any way. And when all you have under you are volunteers, there's I think a sense of kind of being in a boat on your own in the middle of the ocean to start with. And then you add the pandemic on top of that. And I think somebody already, referenced that in their own story, just feeling like I didn't have time at the beginning of the pandemic to address any of my own fears or concerns, because my number one concern had to be how to care for this organization, making sure that our volunteers felt safe, helping them through their own thoughts, their own emotions, their own fears. And then you add the next layer of our clients and the clients that you're seeing and the lines that you're seeing and the emotion on people's faces when they're begging you for toilet paper. I mean, what a difficult job to have to stare in the faces of people who are crying, asking you for toilet paper. Like, you don't even realize how that affects you until later. And then it's just been so cyclical, because it wasn't just one short-term thing. It's now gone on for a year. And so just when you think you're starting to breathe again, then the big rush of the holidays and the new increase in numbers. And then at the beginning of the year, we started losing a bunch of people, and we lost some very, very close members of our community here to COVID. And you add the grief and the emotion that comes with that. And then for me on the DISC profile, I score off the charts on altruism. And so I'm constantly just trying to fix and solve everyone else's emotions and feelings. And I forget sometimes that I have my own. And so I find that I tend to be more short or impatient now with people or hearing their stories, almost just because my tank's too full to hear anybody else's sad stories. I have so many of my own that I don't share with anybody because I don't want to burden anyone else. I think that Mr. Boudreau mentioned in his comment that you feel bad because you're like, oh, my situation's not as bad as anybody else's, so I don't need to feel this way, or you feel guilty for feeling this way. So I think there's just so many layers and so many things that can contribute to compassion fatigue and obviously stress. So
Thank you for sharing that. It's normal. It's completely normal to feel this. I think if everyone, if we went around the virtual room, I think everybody would admit we're experiencing some compassion fatigue. You're definitely not alone. You just listed all the layers upon layers of the things that you have to, deal with, and they're not even your own feelings. You're having to hold space for everybody else, right? Your volunteers, your staff, the people they're serving, and you're hearing these heart-wrenching stories. Someone just begging you for toilet paper is such a great example. Who would have thought that we'd be in this position, having to stand there and perhaps even having to say, we can't help you with this, we'll do our best, but we can't help everyone. And to hear these stories, and they stick with you, they stay with you for a long time, and absolutely adds up over time. And you're still, going to be dealing with your own stuff. I'm sure you still don't have the time or bandwidth to even handle your own personal fears. And so that will kind of continue to come out over time. So knowing what your resources are, it doesn't matter what position you're in, you can experience this. It doesn't matter if you're a volunteer, your executive director, whatever role you're in, it's coming because you are in the face, but you're on the front line. You're on the front line and you're hearing these heartbreaking stories, and sometimes you're able to help. And when you feel helpless, you really do. And it stays with you. Did someone else? I thought I saw someone else want to add to that. You want to share your own experience? Thanks, Leanne. Someone trying to speak? If you are, just unmute. There you go.
There we go. Sorry, I unmuted my phone. I didn't realize I had to on Zoom too. We have a hunger hotline here at the Arizona Food Bank Network. And early on in the pandemic, getting phone calls from people who either had COVID or were going through or had to quarantine, and they needed food. And our food banks are not equipped to be able to deliver. How did they get food? And it was just so heartbreaking hearing that story over and over again and asking them, well, do you have any friends who could pick up a food box for you? Do you have any family? Do you have any, it just felt so, I just felt so helpless. Like I could not help these people, but I knew that our food banks had food. I knew that we had the food to give, but trying to get the food to the people who needed it the most was just really heartbreaking. And hearing that, day after day for a while was really, really hard. And at the time I was living with my mom, who's 86. So then I had my own added paranoia of, oh my God, I can't bring this home. What if I get her sick? And to live like that for as long as we have been is just, you get to a point where you don't even feel burned out anymore. You just have to laugh because there's nothing else left,
Yes, Tara, what you're saying is so true. It's a whirlwind of, forced into this crisis mode if we weren't already in it. There are other stressors that were already happening before the pandemic. This is just adding to it. You speak to the helplessness you're on the phone, you know you have the resources to give them, but we can't get it to them. It's an ongoing struggle, and it continues to be for many organizations and services, because we're still being careful. We're still operating mostly in a virtual environment, and it's so difficult. There's no answer to make this better. We're just in it together, and like you said, you're at a point where it's like, okay, burnout, I'm just in it. I just have to keep going. I can't stop. And some of us keep going, and some of us hit a wall. When we stop, we were forced to stop because we literally can't go on. That's why we have to continue to have these conversations. These aren't one-off conversations. Keep talking about it as much as you can. Talk about your own personal stuff too, if you can make time for that. Because at some point, hopefully at some point, this will, become less and less of a crisis mode, hopefully. And you'll be in a position where your feelings start to come to the surface if they're not already. So does someone want to add to that?
We would use at St. Vincent de Paul, besides the 211, Arizona 211, we used the Maricopa County.gov website. They had some mental health counseling available. We used other resources because we had that for some of our families. As you mentioned, people would call asking for those type of resources. And I know that 211 has some help. So did Catholic Charities through the Diocese of Phoenix, which we used also. But there's resources out there. And a lot of times they had a lot of nice handouts they would print and send out that would be like 2 or 3 page handouts on dealing with stress. So that was very helpful. The different websites we'd find to help our volunteers as they were trying to help family members and people that are serving, dealing with the stressful situations they're in.
That's great to know. And if everybody doesn't have those resources, perhaps Jeff can, collect those resources and make sure everyone has access to them. And just to touch on, the stories you're sharing, my world is crisis, and we're all dealing with crisis. And, the crisis line, we get calls from people every day. We operate all the COVID related crisis lines, including, the COVID hotline, tracing line, the registration line now, and people just generally in crisis, whether it be related to COVID or not. Well, our workers, our crisis specialists, hear these stories day in, day out. They're also dealing with their own. So, they're having to go through and navigating that as well. And what support do crisis specialists have? Are they going to go home and then call the crisis, line too? So it's important that we know our resources, but at the same time, we oftentimes do feel like, well, who are we going to reach out to? Who can I talk to? Do I have time to help myself? And how do I go about doing that? So these resources are very helpful in having these numbers, these websites, so that we actually have access to these resources as well. Part of, supporting one another is ensuring that our agencies are trauma informed. And I imagine that yours are all trauma informed, but, just to kind of review that, making sure that everybody has support, whether it be conference like this, people have access to sessions where they can connect with people, and just ongoing support from management, from leadership. I understand, Leanne, you're that staff, so you'll have all the volunteers coming to you. But if there's an opportunity for them to connect with one another, if you don't already have that in place, you could set up virtual spaces for folks to connect, even just to talk about their own experiences, to have an outlet to share their own personal fears. Not a call to talk about the communities they're serving, but to talk about their own needs. Get the support that they deserve and that they need. So you could offer that. And then just checking in with them, which I'm sure you're doing, is continuing to check in. So moving on, does anybody want to say anything more? I know we have about 20 more minutes, and I was going to get a little bit more into the action items. So I want to just make sure there's an opportunity for people to share, because this might be the first time in a long time that you have that opportunity to share your own personal connections and experience. I want to make sure that I'm holding that space for you all. Anyone? All right. I like being able to see everyone. I can give Jeff has a copy of my PowerPoint. So if you'd like a copy of that, Jeff, would you mind sharing that with everybody in a PDF? Because I think it's nice. We're talking about very serious stuff here and that we can see one another and have a conversation. All right, good. So then we're continuing to talk about work. I think it's a good transition that balancing the work and personal life, very difficult. Again, there's no right formula. There's not a one size fits all. Part of it is, again, assessing. Well, the first step, remember, is acknowledging that you deserve it. You deserve to take care of yourself, to make time for that, even though it feels like you don't have the time. Find it, identify the barriers, identify things that work for you realistically in your life, and then take your time, baby steps. Don't come up with a full-on self-care plan where you're going to do all these things at once. One little thing at a time. Today, say no to someone. There you go. Self-care for the day. Tomorrow, try something else. Baby steps. All right. Let's move on to some of the things we can do. Does anybody have anything they want to share that works for you? Some self-care strategies. Sometimes it's helpful to hear what other people are doing that are in similar fields. Are there things that are helping you to get through the day, to be able to show up the next day for your community, for your staff, for your volunteers?
I can talk a little bit about that. My name is Kate. I'm with Waste Not. I'm the executive director. And I think the pandemic helped me realize that we can do things more efficient. We can do things a little bit easier to take the burden off of staff members, to meet virtually if we can, so people don't have to deal with traffic and an hour of commute time and things of that nature. I think that we all took a lot of unnecessary things off of our calendars when we were so busy in the midst of things, and I haven't put them back on in some cases. So I do think that that's one of my strategies, and just like unsubscribing from all of the things that we all get as leaders of nonprofits. That adds to my stress, just to see all of this stuff adding up in my inbox. I can't stand that because it just feels like so much pressure, and my to-do list is growing by the second. So I really try to be proactive in unsubscribing from things and really only engaging with people that I know can benefit our community through Waste Not, and just really trying to make things simplified for myself and for my team.
That's wonderful. Thank you. I hope that's helpful. I'm hearing you and I understand the flood of emails. I'm sure others can relate to that. I see some heads nodding. So that's a good technique. Thank you for sharing that. Get rid of those unnecessary emails that are just, your plate's so full already. So if it's not urgent or something you have to do, you could probably take a break from it, maybe permanently. Anyone else want to share anything similar or different?
Try to do something that's like really simple, and that was identify some things that make me feel joyful, and then find ways to incorporate them or have them in my daily life. So the smell of cinnamon makes me really happy. So cinnamon candles, or Thieves essential oil or something, and have it ready and accessible for those moments when I'm feeling like extra stressed and I need some deep breaths, just to have that extra scent that makes me feel happy. And I'm like super obsessed with iced tea. And so if I have a really good flavored unsweet iced tea, I will go out of my way on the way to or from work or to a meeting or from a meeting, just to have a really yummy tropical iced green tea, because I know that it will help me feel a little lighter that day. So just trying to find a few easy, small things that will bring those moments of joy and peace have been really helpful for me in a time when I don't feel like I can add in a 30-minute workout or something else to my day. But those little things are simple and they bring me joy.
I love that. I'm going to go find some cinnamon right after during the break and see if that helps me. I love it. scents can be really aromatherapy, and candles that can be really relaxing for some people. So that's a great suggestion. And the iced tea as well, I'm a fan of. So little things like that, any little things that will bring you joy. You're very small. Does anyone else want to share? For some people, just take a notepad and just start writing, get your feelings out, just free writing, expressive writing, you write poetry, anything, just get it out on paper even. If you're not talking to people, sometimes it helps to just get it all out. So you're venting to yourself and you're just letting it out. Validate your own, feelings, accept where you're at, to say, this is hard right now. I don't know when it's going to get easier. I'm doing my best and I am rocking it. So self-affirmations. I'm doing everything. I'm showing up, getting my iced tea, smelling my cinnamon. I'm getting rid of these emails I don't need. Goodbye. And I'm doing everything I can to stay present, to show up, to stay healthy, and to support my teams and the communities we serve. And that's what we can do. That's the core of it. And on top of that, if we can do other things, great. But, give yourself a pat on the back. You're showing up. You're doing what you can. And you're doing a lot. For some, expressive arts can help. So it could be writing or dancing. I don't know if any of you do this. I'm not ashamed to say that I'll just put some music really loud. And, I have 3 dogs and they love to dance. They haven't said otherwise. So I pick them up. I dance with them. We have, dance parties. It's wonderful. So anything, if you want to be silly, my next session is all about being silly. I think that's part of self-care, just laughing, finding a comedy show. I mean, Netflix, how many series or whatever you have TV-wise. If you watch shows, there's so many out there. Just laughter, singing. If you're a great voice, or maybe you just sing to yourself in the shower, whatever it is, belt it out. And again, if you have anything you want to add to this, please do. There's no bad or wrong self-care. It is all good. Crossword puzzles, I see someone said with their mom. Love that. 4 or 5 times a day. Awesome. I've heard my mom does that too. It's just that you can do games in person, or they have many you can do online. You can do it on a Zoom call or a phone call, or your smartphone if you have that. Someone else tries dancing. Oh, you'll try dancing with your dog too. Awesome. But games keep the mind stimulated. So that's self-care right there.
I've been playing video games online with friends from across the country, and it turns into a social virtual happy hour. That it's I just find that even if we don't even talk that much, there's just something about being together, doing an activity together, that is just calming. It sort of quiets all the dogs barking in my head. So
Yes. Even just, I like what you're saying about just connecting with people. Even just you're playing games, you're not really talking. Some people need to talk. Some people just need to sit there with someone and not talk at all. That's okay. My wife's a psychologist, so she's with patients all day who are struggling in crisis. And I'm a social worker. I do training, so I'm not in the clinical mode. She comes home and we just don't talk for like an hour. Just sit there. Nobody wants to talk. Let's just watch a show, sit in silence. It doesn't matter. Sometimes you just don't need to or want to talk, and that's good. That's a form of self-care. It's taking care of yourself. I know we're getting closer to the end here. I wanted to point out, and just if you're not already, kind of aware of mindfulness and practicing mindfulness, it's another way of just being present in everyday activities, or just, if there's someone that likes to be outside, I like to bird watch, just in it in the moment, watching the birds. If you can, I know our minds are running. There's a lot of things going on, things to do, memories of things in the past, things that I got to do today, later, tomorrow. We can't force them to leave our minds, but we can just be present and allow those thoughts to come in our mind and leave. Can't force them out, but you can say, oh, I'm watching the birds. The thought comes in. It's okay. I recognize that thought's coming in, and now it's flowing out. Here comes another one. It's coming in, flowing out. There's An activity, if we have time to do, you may already be familiar with, and may have done it, is the leaves, the stream, and just watching them float away. And it's just one way to acknowledge the thoughts that are coming into your mind, and then just kind of letting them go, even if it's temporarily, and watching them, place them on a leaf, cloud, and you watch them float downstream away from you. And if it comes back again, you put it on the leaf again, and the leaf again, and you watch it leave, watch it flow away. One concept I like to bring up is radical acceptance. It's really hard to accept everything that's happening to us, to our loved ones, to our communities. It's hard to accept the fear and all the feelings that come with it. And sometimes we just sit with it. It's okay to sit with it and feel our feelings. Be sad, be angry, be upset. Some people need to scream it out. I tell people when I was on the crisis line, they're yelling and they're apologizing. Don't apologize, scream it out, like yell it out, curse, do what you need to do. Just let it out, because holding it in can be more harmful. So I encourage that. And just trying as much as we can. Say, you know what, these things are out of our control. And I've heard some of you say this, like we're in this mode. We may be experiencing burnout, compassion fatigue, but we're still going. We're still going. So on some level, we're accepting this is where it's at right now. And we're also accept that you're doing the best that you can. So mindfulness is just about being present, being in the moment. My wife will say, did you practice mindfulness when I'm stressed out? I tried, but I couldn't do it. I'm trying. Well, you don't try mindfulness, you just do it. You're just in the moment. She reminds me that, oh yeah, I just have to be in the moment. That's it. Anybody want to add to that? If anybody practices mindfulness, has it been helpful?
I think for me at the beginning of the pandemic, I came to a point where I was kind of forced to. I wasn't wanting to address my own feelings about COVID because there was fear there, and I knew that, and I was afraid that like my anxiety about that would take over. So every time my own thoughts or fears about it would come, I would just push. And I realized if I kept doing that, so I was at home one day on the weekend and I was like starting to feel it and those thoughts were coming. And I thought, you know what? I need to just sit in this. I need to just let my brain go down the dark rabbit hole and think, what is the worst case scenario? And let myself think about all those scary thoughts and have that moment or few hours with those scary thoughts, because it was so much effort all day long to keep pushing them away. So when I finally let myself acknowledge that I had them and that I was feeling them, instead of suppressing them, and accept, okay, am I going to be okay with the worst case scenario? Okay, then I found that I had more energy and space in my mind to go and deal with everything else. So super helpful when you can give yourself that moment. And maybe it's not in the middle of the day, but at night, in the evening when you're at home, to let yourself think through whatever's been popping up in your brain is helpful.
So important. And just to piggyback on what you're saying is find that time and the right place to do that. There's nothing wrong with a good cry session. I know for some of us, it's hard. It might be our culture, the way we're brought up. Like we feel shame. It's okay. Like we really have the right to cry it out, let it out, scream it out. And to be honest, you can go anywhere. If you can't be at home and do that, you don't feel comfortable, I'll just share a little tip. It might not work for you, but I go to the car wash. I love the car wash. It's just me in the car. No one can see me or hear me. Sometimes they like rainbow colors, and I just cry it out or scream it out. It's my safe, happy place. And so if iced tea works for you and cinnamon, wherever you need to go, let it out. If you need to scream it out, go into nature and where no one can hear you and just shout it out. You'd be surprised if you haven't done this already, how good it can feel. It really can. So that's part of self-care. Good. Keep checking in with yourself because you're doing check-ins with everyone else. Find that time. If you're not able to make time to walk, just at least check in with yourself. Where am I at right now? Like you said, man, I can't hold this in anymore. Check in, your mind, your body. You do a body scan. You can lay down on your back. There's ways that you can just like lay back and just kind of focus on your body from head to toe and just being aware of sensations and the emotions that are being kicked up and allowing yourself to feel and just lay there. You can meditate if that's something that works for you. There are different ways you can meditate. There's tons of resources out there. There's virtual groups. There's free resources out there that you can participate in those kind of group yoga and meditation and mindfulness. People are just willing to give, freely their services because it's such a hard time when we're trying to be there for one another. So definitely take that time, to reflect, self-reflection, even if you're not journaling or something, just to think about, ask yourself how you're doing. Hey, Nix, how you doing today? I'll do it. It's not silly. It's real. Like, you can check in with yourself because if you feel like you're checking in with everyone else and no one's checking in with you, you have a right to check in with yourself. Be there for yourself. Put yourself first. Take care of your own needs. And just do the best. That's all you can do. If you're thinking to yourself, I can't do anymore, stop. Accept that's where you're at. Take care of you so that you can continue to take care of others. I think we have just a few minutes left. I do encourage you, I'll send that activity to Jeff to share with the PowerPoint. It's the leaves on a stream. I really love it. It's just one. I utilize it a lot because I have so many thoughts about what I want to do, who I want to help, things I have to do. Send them to the leaf, watch it float away. Even if it keeps coming, let it float away. It can be useful. It's kind of tools. So let's take advantage of them so that we can support ourselves and support others, continue our support. So with that, open for more questions or things you want to share. A few more minutes. Anyone?
I'll just share one of the points that was made earlier was one of the F's was faith. And I see myself going to mass more, I don't even go on Sundays now. I go during the week at least twice. And I'll watch mass on television, but just my faith has helped me stay strong, knowing persons that I've known that have passed away, that knowing they're in a better place, and just trying to be positive with all that. And even for my family and friends, persons that we serve, some of our guests have passed away, our volunteers that have passed, but just trying to get be more stronger in my faith, to know that this is just temporary, this world, but using that a lot to help me. And I know earlier talked about, I'll go in the mornings and stop by and get a Arnold Palmer on the way to work. And it's good. I'll sit at coffee, I'll drink the Arnold Palmer. So it's a lot of little things that thank you for sharing the things that we can do to help us deal with stress, being, we talk about being more mindful, but being more mindful that others around me, I'm sure, are feeling just the same, if not worse. And if there's ways that I can help them or use them to help me and dealing with everything that we're going through, because we know some of the same persons that may have passed from COVID, and going to some of the services and just knowing that mentioned earlier, this is going to be long term. And a lot of people keep telling me, oh yeah, we can't wait till the year's over. And I keep telling myself it's going to be longer than a year. You could see it. I could see it with the people we're serving. And it is going to be this way for who knows how long. It may be forever. We're going to be dealing with the virus in our community. But now how I'm going to deal with it and help others deal with the fact that we're still going to be needing to, I've been vaccinated and going to take the boosters when they come out, and encouraging others to do the same, because we want to, I want them to be around. I want to be around. And so there's so many, like you said, my mind can think 1,000 things at one time, and which one takes priority. Sometimes it's it's the negative. So I try and switch to the positive. What can I do to make things better?
Absolutely. I appreciate you sharing your connection with faith, and I'm sure others can relate, faith and spirituality and anything that can help us get through. And I know we're wrapping up. I just want to remind you that we think about, what others are going through, and sometimes we get into to that mindset, well, they're going through so much worse what I'm going through. We don't know, what others are experiencing, but you have every right, no matter what you're feeling, to also take care of yourself. You are also could be struggling with something, or someone it's try to avoid comparing it, because you have a right to also have feelings, and a right to be going through hard times, and a right to get support from others, and to take care of yourself. So let's wrap it up with self-compassion and self-love, and how important that is. Thanks for having me here.
Yeah, thanks so much, Nix. I really appreciate it. It's been very helpful for me. I think just knowing that other people are in the same boat, just hearing the stories, we're not alone. I think that's a huge benefit. So I put a copy of Nick's presentation in the chat window, and I realize some of you are maybe on your mobile phone. So I'll be happy to email this out afterwards, along with Nick's activity leaves on a stream. I'll send that out at the end of the day today. Nix is going to be hosting another session with us at 11:30. It's basically self-care through laughter. So if you're free, please join us for that. We're on break officially right now till 11:30. So what's going to happen now is I'm going to close this breakout room. Everyone should be moved back to the main session automatically. I'm going to create the new breakout rooms for the next round, and then you guys can choose where you want to go from there. So, all right. Thanks so much, Nick.
Thanks everyone.
So much, everybody.
Bye.
Okay.